This time on episode 503 of Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., we discuss the 2024 Disney Plus show X-Men 97, Season 1, Episode 1, To Me, My X-Men, and Episode 2, Mutant Liberation Begins.
I'm SP from the GonnaGeek.com show, a weekly geek news podcast that is part of the GonnaGeek.com network. Just like the show you're checking out now, shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other amazing geek shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
Raised on X-Men, empowered by the Avengers, strengthened by the Defenders, webbed by Spider-Man, adopted by the Fantastic Four, and forged by S.H.I.E.L.D. Stand by for your Marvel debriefing.
And now it's time for your scheduled debriefing. I'm Agent Lauren.
I'm Agent Michelle.
I'm Agent Chris.
And I'm producer of the show, Director SP.
Welcome to Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. This show is recorded on Saturday, March 23rd, 2024, live from the Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. studio and broadcast Saturday morning memory-wide. Come join us in our live chat as we record. And Michelle, what are we talking about today?
Today, we are talking about 2 episodes. First, To Me, My X-Men. Cyclops races to find the source of the new anti-mutant technology. And Mutant Liberation Begins. When Magneto is forced by the UN to stand trial, a group of anti-mutant rioters test his resolve.
We're going to start off by talking about the first thoughts. Michelle, what do you got?
Took me straight back to watching the original.
I cried a little when the intro started, but that could have also been the margarita that I drank before watching.
When did number of years go by?
This series has been modernized. The graphics were updated a little bit, but it was still true to the original. And I will venture to say the story was a little bit better paced. All right, we're going to start talking about To Me, My X-Men. I think this was an excellent transition from the series that ended in 1997 and the series that we got today in 2024. It was a bridge, right, Chris?
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with that. This episode, you've had, almost 30 years between the ending of that original run and this episode, which I refuse to believe how math works like that. But for anybody, unless you decided to go back and watch that original run and time it out with when this one's starting, I mean, you've got a good chunk of time where you need to just kind of get back into the mindset of not only this X-Men series, but also 90s cartoons in general, because this show was very 90s cartoon.
Yeah, it didn't help / hurt, I guess, that when they started off, first of all, we got pretty much the old intro with some new stuff kind of put in, timing changed in parts, but it's all still there. And we had, the city skyline with the Twin Towers still there. The first guy shows up and it's just mullets. Do you remember how the X-Men 90s cartoon and the Spider-Man cartoon from the 90s, everyone had mullets? Because that's just apparently what cool was back in the mid-90s.
And don't forget about those crop top t-shirts.
Yeah, the crop top t-shirts, which I guess I want to say mullets and crop tops are back, but I don't know if that's culture-wide or just wrestling. But either way, and then we get to later in the episode, a rave, and that just, it all just brought me back.
It was a rave. I termed it as a nightclub scene, and to me, it was straight out of Buffy the Vampire Slayer at the end of their episodes, whatever. Same sort of look there. But yeah, I'll go with the rave, the 90s raves. That's pretty cool. And it was a good intro. We had the iconic scene with all of the characters that had fallen out of the jet together. So you had the pan of the team there on the ground of the Sahara Desert. I assume that's where they were because that's where they were headed. So cool. I did have an issue with the first episode, and I wrote this note down before I saw the second episode, that no one was concerned about the mutant powers of Jean and Scott's baby. That comes up in the second episode, but the first, it's just like, okay, she's pregnant. I guess that was the thing to focus on. She's pregnant. And that's it.
Yeah, first episode was definitely acting as the reintroduction of the characters, the time, the world. And I also loved that at the end, it's basically the same end. It's updated, but it's that same kind of database look.
Michelle, Scott's been struggling a little bit.
Well, he's got a lot on his shoulders. He's taken it upon himself to carry on Xavier's ideals and what the X-Men are supposed to be about.
I'm a little surprised Marvel didn't try to AI the original voice actor's voice. We'll talk about the voice actors later, but I am surprised by that. But I'm glad that another voice actor got the opportunity.
Yeah, I think all the replacement voice actors did a great job, and we will talk about them later. Also, speaking of Cyclops, this is the most I've liked him in a while. He and Jean were two of my least favorite characters in the original cartoon, and I really liked his portrayal here.
Chris, talking about Jean, we got to see some of her powers.
Yeah, looking at Jean, we got to see her use her powers against Gyrick and Trask. With Gyrick, we're trying to figure out where Trask is. With Trask, we're trying to figure out how they can get rid of Master Mold and all these Sentinels that have popped up. And it's just really interesting that we jump essentially from the end of that original series where she doesn't really want to use her powers against people like that to a straight on, yeah, I'm going to take my powers and invade their brain.
We start out the whole series here with a fight. We get another fight later on. They're pretty good, huh, Michelle?
Oh, that Sentinel fight was right out of season 1. But this time it's better because they're more of a team. That moment where Gambit powers up Wolverine's claws and then Wolverine's like, morph, blob me, and then he bounces off of that and just shirks off the head of Master Mold. I mean, it was just amazing.
Getting to see Morph just go off like that, I think, was the great part of what is essentially just a mindset setting episode. Like, you get to see instantly that not only can he look like these people, he kind of takes on their physical powers as well.
Yeah, we see that a little bit with Mystique in various iterations. Also, I was both delighted and annoyed by the fact I was like, oh, the voice actor changed, and what are they going to do? Okay, the laugh is still there. The very annoying laugh is still there.
Michelle, you had a question that I did as well at the very end.
Okay, we learn that Xavier has a will, and it's been a year, but we're finally getting around to it. And it's a book. But basically, there's only one thing to it. Everything Charles has, it goes to his friend, Eric. So why is it a book? Is it literally like this love letter to him? Or is it my silverware goes to Eric? My set of tchotchkes on the bookshelf go to Eric. Like, is it just this entire book of him writing things and just saying Eric and Eric and Eric all over again? Just what is in that book that is the will?
I pictured a lot of pages with the titles of things that are pasted into it or taped into it, like the X-Jet and the mansion and the cars and stuff. I pictured the titles being in there, but yeah, it's probably just this giant love letter.
Yeah, it's a legal document, but every now and then in the heart, there's like a little gel pen doodle, Eric, with a heart around it.
I did notice something specific and this is a good transition from one episode to the next episode, is in the first episode at the very beginning, you have Professor Xavier having the card in the intro. Second episode, you have Magneto in that same spot in the card. So they did try to transition it. The end of the beginning credits is the same, so you still see both of them. So I would expect to see Professor Xavier later on. Spoilers, don't know if that happens or not, but I would expect to see him later on. All right, we'll move on to the second episode, Mutant Liberation Begins. Michelle, Magneto.
Can he be redeemed? I mean, he's saving humans. He's using Xavier's money to send mutants to Genosha, which he did a little snide remark about. It's like, well, how come none of you ever thought about doing this? And how come Charles never thought about doing this? And he willingly stands trial. So can his redemption parade work?
I have a thought that this is all a grand master plan by Magneto. We'll see if that happens or not. I just don't trust him at all. So we'll see. Like the whole, I'm going to stand trial and then I'm going to earn everybody's trust. He's being sneaky with Jean, or not Jean, with Rogue though, too.
#Magneto was right.
About what?
Lots of things. In this case, he's right to be angry, obviously, at, all the everything that mutants are dealing with. There's also the fact that, again, we were joking, well, maybe not really joking, about how much Charles loves Eric. And the thing is, that does go both ways. So I think he really is trying to do right by his friend, who he thinks he will never see again, and try to not just spit on that legacy. I think he is trying his best. I don't think that's going to stop him from being a bit more extreme than the X-Men might prefer. But yeah, I think ever since I was a kid, I've thought Magneto has a point. The older I get, the more I think that. And yeah, I guess we'll see over the course of the series. Also, speaking of him and Rogue, the second I saw him with the long hair in the trailers, I knew they were going to do the love triangle thing from the comics.
Michelle, do you have any thoughts on Magneto and Rogue?
Well, we should have seen it kind of coming, because she actually calls him Eric at the table, and Gambit sort of side-eyes her and realizes it. And yes, this is from the comics. From those of you who are surprised by this, you need to understand that Magneto is powerful enough to keep generating his powers and have control over them, to where him and Rogue can touch and hug and kiss and stuff. So it is going to be a really viable love triangle.
The undertone here is a lot of political movements, and it gets back to the comics and everything. But Chris, X-Men, are they political? Is this a statement on society?
I cannot believe that they're taking political agendas here and putting them into this new X-Men cartoon. I mean, it's not like they had to do that with the old one. Oh, wait, no, they did. And X-Men from the beginning, in every iteration, has been a stand-in for various oppressed groups of whatever flavor you want to think about it for that. And coming in here, Magneto, it has bothered me so much this past few days on the internet that everybody is whining about politics getting put into X-Men and they didn't have this before. And oh, come on. Were you paying attention to anything at all?
Yeah, it's like that one meme. X-Men is political, always has been. And here you could really see the intersectionality, I guess, on display. You have the very clear queer allegories, of course, which Magneto actually kind of brings up in the UN. The reaction that Jean has when she's freaking out about, we are probably going to have a mutant baby, and that baby is going to be treated a certain way by society. There's a fear of, if you are in a community where there's a possibility for you to have a baby that is darker skinned, there's a very real fear about how is this kid going to be treated by society, It's one of the reasons I'm so glad that there are more Black and Afro-Latina heroes and stuff for my niece, who is very visibly half Black. And it's horrible that, at this time where you should be glad you're bringing this new life into the world, you have to be terrified about more than just, are kids going to be mean to them on the playground because, blah, girls, blah, boys, whatever. Is it going to be the parents bullying the kids too? Things like that.
Yeah, let's talk about bringing babies into the world, because in the second episode, we get Jean giving birth to Nathan, who, spoilers, is Cable eventually. So this is true to the comics, and this is what's happening. And it's a funny scene where Logan is just screeching to the hospital. He doesn't care who he's going to run over, and Jean has to use her powers to make sure everybody's safe and everything like that. But Cable is now in our X-Men world. So that's cool. And then also at the very end, we got Jean, supposedly, or somebody that looks like Jean at the door. I'm just going to postulate it could be Rachel Summers at the door, which is another comic character. So that could happen.
Madeline
I think
Pryor.
I know who it is. Yes. Well, I think if we go by the comics, it's a bit of a spoiler. Do we want to talk about it?
I think it's going to come up in the next episode next week. So,
well, I think Madeline Pryor is here. I think you should just keep your eyes on it if they follow the actual comic storyline.
Okay.
But I also really loved, again, on the topic of discrimination, the doctor is like, I don't want to, I could be, what if the baby's dangerous? What if you lose control of your powers? There's a lot of, in the news right now, stuff about doctors in certain states who are unwilling to perform medical procedures on some people because they don't know if this falls under the purview of the law, so they don't want to be arrested, so they just kind of hands off. And there's a lot of court cases going on about that right now. But we did see Rogue absorb his powers and give birth and assist Jean in the delivery.
That was a interesting use of her powers, definitely. So we got two things left to talk about in the episode. Michelle, we have to talk about the big bullet at the end.
Yeah. Storm sees that Eric's about to get shot and takes the bullet for him. And the scene where she is like, I can't feel the air. I can't feel the moisture. Broke my heart. She is an Omega class. She is the closest thing we have to a goddess. And now she is human and trying to find her own way.
That happening is just another block in my mind that this might be a plan of Magneto, because if you want to take people off the board to assume control, you'd want to take Storm off the board. So this could have been an elaborate plan by Magneto to take Storm off of the X-Men and out of the picture for him. I'm not going to say that's exactly what's going to happen, but it is nagging in the back of my mind that this could be a definite plot point. It is really sad seeing Storm not an X-Men anymore. It's really, really heartbreaking for everybody, the whole team, but definitely her.
You can't forget, though, that there was a run in the comics where she not only was in the X-Men without her powers, but she was leading the team because she has the tertiary power of just being a badass, really good ruler and leader.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was scratching my head over why she was acquiescing to Scott at the beginning of him being the leader of the X-Men, but she did, so.
She didn't want him to be a whiny baby.
There's also the fact that I guess he has tenure over her since Cyclops was one of the original 5 X-Men. And it really kind of drove home, you see her, they make in the previous episode, in this one, they make a point of her being so powerful, Omega level mutant detected. And then she's basically lost one of her senses. She mentions, I can't feel the wind, the moisture, anything. It's going to be really interesting and painful to see her dealing with this. I do fully expect for her to still be the badass that we know her to be. And I'm pretty sure the first season is probably going to be about, oh, she's fine. And, with or without powers, she is who she is. We'll see. We'll see.
Muir Island was brought in as a name thing. So we'll see what happens in the long term. The last thing that we have in the notes that we haven't covered yet, and I want to give Chris the opportunity, is you noticed something about Jean.
Yeah. So after that first episode where she's perfectly willing to use her powers, she comes in here and explicitly says, no, I can't just use my powers to check out Eric's brain. That's bad. We shouldn't be using our powers against people like that. Plus the fact that she'd have to constantly be doing it, so that would suck.
She also mentioned that it wouldn't be an indicator of completeness. It's like in this specific instance, in this time, it could be fine, but 5 minutes from now, it could be different. So, all right, let's move on to the voice actors. Lauren, this is your bailiwick.
Okay. So we have a lot of new voice actors, either replacing people who are no longer with us, or in the case of Jubilee, the original voice actress, Allison Court, stepped back because she wanted somebody of Chinese descent to play Jubilee, who is of Chinese descent. So first off, we have Ray Chase voicing Cyclops. You can hear him in Final Fantasy XV and in the movie Malignant, which is one of my favorite recent campy horror movies. Jennifer Hale is Jean Grey. She has previously voiced Jean Grey in pretty much everything since Wolverine and the X-Men. And she is also Fem Shep in Mass Effect. We had J.P. Karliak as Morph. They can be heard in Spidey and His Amazing Friends, the little kids cartoon, and is a founder of a voice acting group called Queer Vox that is dedicated to finding queer voice actors to play queer characters. I am personally a member of this community, both the queer community and Queer Vox. Holly Chu voices Jubilee now. You can hear her in Blue Eye Samurai on Netflix. Isaac Robinson Smith voices Bishop. You can hear him on the cartoon Hamster and Gretel. Matthew Watterson is now Magneto. You can hear him as the narrator in Diablo 4 and as a character in Starfield. A couple of characters, I believe. Guy Agustini voiced Roberto da Costa, Sunspot. He is a voice actor in Grand Theft Auto 5 and some of the expansions. AJ Lucasio is Gambit. You can hear him in Voltron Legendary Defenders. And it was a short appearance, but I wanted to bring it up. Courtney Taylor as Callisto. She voices Agatha Harkness in the recent Marvel's Midnight Suns game and is in OKKO Let's Be Heroes. So very, very, very good voice cast. Even some of the minor roles that I didn't mention, you have people like Eric Bauza, who's the current voice of Porky Pig, is the voice of the Sentinel they fought in episode 1. There's just a lot of very well-known names as additional voices. I really look forward to seeing who else we get for the rest of the series.
We are going to get cameos of other Marvel characters in here. It was posted on social media, so we'll see who voices them as we go on. Or maybe if it's just, what they did in the first series is just a visual and no voice to it. All right. We're going to end with a question. We've been doing this recently. So my question to you all is, what was your favorite Saturday morning cartoon? I grew up in the 70s and a little bit of the 80s. So my favorites are more of the Hanna-Barbera style with like the Jetsons or Scooby-Doo. But there's also Star Blazers, Transformers, Thundercats, G.I. Joe, Godzilla, and Godzuki, another Hanna-Barbera show there. Did you all have a favorite Saturday morning cartoon?
You mean besides X-Men?
Well, that was in the 90s, so yeah. Go ahead. If that was it, then that is it.
Well, other than that, there was also Ninja Turtles. There was She-Ra. There was, Thundercats on your list. There was a bit of crossover in our time there. I really liked a bunch of the adaptations of movies that were done around the time, like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Back to the Future, Teen Wolf.
You can't forget the Ninja Turtles.
I did. That was the first one.
Oh,
Yeah.
she did. Sorry.
Yeah.
Anybody else, Michelle?
Well, what's interesting is I didn't really get to do Saturday morning cartoons. I
Okay.
got to do cartoons and such in the afternoon after school and old reruns of I Dream of Jeannie and Happy Days and things like that and game shows. I was such a game show person. So it's not like I was anti-cartoon. It was just I got cartoons when I could get cartoons.
What was your favorite game show?
I loved Password, especially with Betty White.
Yeah, Betty White. She was in a bunch of them back in the day. That was good. Chris, do you have a favorite cartoon or game show, apparently?
For me, most of the cartoons I watch that are coming into my mind now weren't Saturday morning, and I'm trying to really narrow it down to really fit your question. But what's really popping into my head, and that's a restriction I'm putting on myself, but what's really popping into my head is back when there was the Disney's One Saturday Morning block of stuff, Recess.
Oh, yeah. That was a good one. Did any of y'all watch Garfield and Friends?
Oh,
That was another
yes.
huge
Mhm.
favorite of mine.
Yeah.
I'm surprised
Yes.
nobody mentioned the Smurfs. That was a big one.
Oh, and
That
then there's
was more of
strawberry
a-
shortcake. There's strawberry shortcake.
Yeah, those were both on, but like for some reason I associate them more with like being on before school.
Yeah, I did not list Robotech in there, my favorite cartoon of all time, because it was after school. It was not on Saturday morning. It might have been on Saturday morning, but it was primarily airing after school. So, okay.
Not a cartoon, but MST3K also used to be on Saturdays. So it was like watch the cartoons, and then when it turned over to like, golf or whatever, MST3K.
So if our audience has a favorite Saturday morning cartoon, obviously we're going to be talking about the X-Men for the next at least 8 weeks. I forget how many episodes we're going to get. So let us know what your favorite Saturday morning cartoon was. All right, we're going to wrap this up. Final thoughts on these 2 episodes. We'll start with Michelle.
I am looking forward to more of Magneto's fabulous hair and hopefully the return of Storm's even better hair.
Lauren?
I'm sad that so much of this is still relevant. 30 years later, if you want to look at the cartoon, and like 50, 60 years later, if you want to look at the comics. But I'm still so excited. I'm glad to be back with these characters in this world and the voice actors and just all of it.
Chris?
I knew that we were going to be excited about it coming back, and by we, I mean just the general Marvel-y comics fan base. I knew that the people working on the show were going to be excited about it. But when you have people like LeBron James who are going out and saying, hey, where can I watch this? I want to make sure I can watch it. Yeah, this is not just a nice geeky show for geeky nostalgia. This is something that can be very important.
What I've noticed so far is the story. The story is going to be amazing. It's going to be cohesive, moving. They have the ability to run a story through a season, which did not happen in the original run. They tried their best, but it wasn't a focus. The focus was just getting the episodes out. This is more of a cohesive story and plot line, and I am looking forward to seeing all of the season and what they bring to us. So talking about that, next time we're going to be talking about X-Men 97, episode 3. There is an episode title out there, but we're just going to hold off on those until they actually air, because Disney Plus has a track record of changing titles on us as we go forward. And if you want to get a hold of us, we have a voicemail line, 844-THE-BUS-1, 844-843-2871. You can let us know what you think about the X-Men 97 or our podcast on it. And we also have a Discord server at gonnageek.com/Discord. There's been a lot of talk about X-Men over there. Once again, that's discord. All right, that's all I have for this week. Until next time, I'm the Director SP.
I'm Agent Lauren.
I'm Agent Michelle.
And I'm Agent Chris.
See everybody next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Be good to each other.
Do you think Magneto puts metal stuff in his hair so he doesn't have to use hair products?
I mean, he does have that Beyonce, wave going on. So I think he manipulates his own little magnetic field to make sure that it's fabulous and continuously wavy.
Maybe his hair really is silver.
Thank you for listening. The intro music heard on this podcast is Great Marvels of the World by Lynn Publishing, found on pon5.com. The outro music heard on this podcast is Cinematic Trailer by Ed Records, found on audiojungle.net. Other transitional music on this podcast is found on incompetech.com, audiojungle.net, and pon5.com. For more information about this podcast, please visit legendsofshield.com. Excelsior!
Waffle House is a good meal when you get rid of your wife for the day.
Okay.
Is that your official pitch for an advertisement?
No, that was just me checking waveforms.
Oh, okay. Because that was interesting.
They were surprised that it was just me, though.
Oh.
Oh.
So you took up an entire booth by yourself?
No, I sat at the counter.
Okay. Do you and Kaylee sit at the counter?
Usually she wants to sit at a booth.
Okay.
Booths are comfortable and have a back.
Well, there's always the low counter. Then you have actual chairs with backs.
Anybody watching Halo or watched Halo?
Yes.
I have not seen the finale. It's the one episode
Okay.
I haven't seen yet, but I've seen everything up to it.
They better have a season 3.
Okay. I think they were going to. I don't know.
Has it been announced?
Well, Paramount is having financial problems, so maybe.
We just lost Princess Vivi in One Piece. And Nico Robin joined the team.
The live action?
No, the animated one.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's scary.
Yeah, no, they're nowhere near being able to probably even have Vivi in the live action. Unless they skip a lot.
I also have not finished Masters of the Air. I'm like 2 back. Man, leaving for a few days, really, I was running, excuse the expression, Michelle, I was running balls to the wall for 2 weeks before and after. Like last night was my first night that I was like, in like 2 weeks. So I didn't get to watch the X-Men until last night. And then I was on the elliptical for the first time in a while, and I was watching Halo, trying to get caught up with that. I also think I need to catch up with Lower Decks. I don't think I've seen all of the last season. And I need Masters of the Air. What else do I need to watch? There's so much that I need to watch out there.
Yeah.
Oh! So my dad gifted me his e-bike.
Nice.
So it's an Inventon e-bike. It's class 2, which means I can ride it on the trails, which is good because that's how I would have to get to work. I don't trust the main streets. I think the drivers would literally run me off the road. I saw for the first time in years somebody biking on the main road on the way home yesterday, and I was like, "Oh, you are such a dumbass." Because, and I understand legally the bikes. I'm a cyclist too.
Mm-hmm.
Bikes have the right of the road. I get all that, but there are just roads that are not conducive to that. You're going to get yourself killed, and the main road by my house is one of those roads. So, yeah, it's a class 2, which means 20 miles an hour, thinner tires. It's not like basically a motorcycle.
Mm-hmm.
That's an electric motorcycle. That's what class 3 is. 28 miles an hour and on up. Yeah, I will be biking back and forth to work. One of the reasons why I stopped is because it just got to be too much for me to bike 40 miles a day.
Oh, God.
I can see that.
There's it's 17 and a half,
Yeah.
so 35 miles.
Yeah.
There's a pretty steep, I'm actually biking up a dam on the way to work.
Oh, God.
It's switchback, so it's not like straight up or anything, but yeah. And that in addition to everything else, it's just a little bit too much for my body to handle on a day-to-day basis. Maybe eventually I'll get to the point, but I was so broken down the summer that I dedicated to biking back to work that it took my body like 9 months to recover. And even then I was still dealing with injuries that I incurred due to the stresses that I put on my body. So I'm looking forward to less stress. I still am going to pedal. I mean, you can go into full E mode, but I want the assist, not the full E mode. And I will be doing that as soon as it warms up a little bit.
Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is copyright 2013 through 2024.